Welcome back. We're not done talking security, and we've been joined in the program by Major General Emeka Onumajuru, Chief of Defense Operations, joining us from our Abuja studios. General, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so very much. Happy to be here.
General, we just spoke with some of your colleagues that have left the service, and our focus in that conversation had to do with intelligence. We're going to get to issues of operations and some of the efforts being made by the military. And some of the things we raised with them is the issue of whether or not intelligence is effective as it should be. Maybe you respond to that, given the fact that the CDS himself has said in one of the incidents that occurred, I think in the accidental bombing and the secondary explosion, as explained by General Edward Buba, talking about complicity of community, I think, in one of the incidents. And so this complicity could be either by duress or force or by choice. So how is the military and the armed forces navigating this part? And what's your assessment in terms of intelligence and cooperations across sister agencies?
Well, thank you very much. I think first, I want to start by giving a shout out to our troops in the front line, to let them know that the hard work they do day in, day out are well appreciated by Nigerians. So I want to encourage the troops to keep on fighting hard to ensure that the mandate is kept. Now, in terms of intelligence, I want to believe that intelligence is adequate, but it can always be better. It can always be better. You can never have too much intelligence. Intelligence sharing among the services, it's also good. But however, the communities and Nigerians will need to do much more. Do much more in the sense that asymmetric warfare is intelligence driven. Asymmetric warfare, I say again, is intelligence driven. Without intelligence, your chances of success is almost zero. If you have adequate intelligence, you find out that maybe a company of troops can be able to do a job perfectly well. But without intelligence, it's like somebody groping in the dark. In that case, the resources you need is infinite. So intelligence can be better. But right now, I think at the basics idea, we encourage communities to key into the armed forces. Don't forget that every society gets the armed forces it deserves. Every society gets the armed forces it deserves. If you rally around your armed forces, rally around your soldiers, the chances of success is much more higher than when they are alienated, particularly in an asymmetric environment.
General, this is important because this is the first layer. I can imagine the men at the front line, like you've commended them, and we always thank them for their service. And the reason why I want to stay on that question for a little bit before we get to some of the core things you would like to explain to us as to the successes that we want to hear being recorded across the different theaters of war is the fact, beyond appeal and the call, what exactly is the military doing differently? Because their success is our general success.
In terms of intelligence, what we are doing differently is that we've established joint intelligence fusion centers. Joint intelligence fusion centers across all theaters of operation. The Northwest, the Northeast, the Southeast, the South-South, and the North Central. Now, what the Joint Intelligence Fusion Center does is that it has elements of all intelligence agencies within that setup. In that case, intel from the DSS, for instance, automatically gets fed into the center because there's a DSS officer there. So rather than the formation writing maybe to defense headquarters and defense headquarters talking to DSSS, no. That intelligence is domiciled in that particular setup for that theater of operation, and it is easily accessible to all troops. And of course, our external intelligence outfits like the DIA and NIA are also working hard, also have liaisons with several countries, particularly when it has to do with issues around our borders. And the feedback too is also channeled to the Joint Intelligence Fusion Center for the immediate use of troops in the front line. So that Joint Intelligence Center across all theaters of operations is one of the key issues we are doing to ensure that intelligence is readily available to those who need it in the right time. Thank you.
You obviously do a lot of work, both the men on the field in the theater and those providing support and direction. And I think that should not be in contention. But just how well these activities are yielding the desired results for Nigerians, particularly those who are affected by insecurity, banditry, terrorism, and the rest, is now where the issue is. And I want to refer to what former President Muhammadu Buhari said last week. And he said only Nigerians in the corridor of power will understand the administrative challenges confronting the country. And he essentially stressed that the nation's leaders are always faced with bottlenecks in implementing policies and programs. Do you agree with that? And what are the bottlenecks you face in implementing some of your policies, some of your plans? Because I want to imagine that the military has great plans. You want to go there and just end insecurity. But he says that you're always faced with bottlenecks. So do you agree? And if that is the case, what are these bottlenecks? So we'll lay the cards on the table.
I think for the military, it's quite a bit different, because the military it's an organization that have rules and procedures, and those rules and procedures have been rehearsed and followed over time, particularly in terms of combat, in terms of being in combat. When it concerns other administrative issues, maybe like housing for troops, then that's a different ballgame, in the sense that you still have to feed into the general loop, say budgeting processes, when funds are released, when funds are, what is approved, is it what is released, how long does it take to be released. But when it comes to combat, in terms of equipment procurement, there are a little bit of delay, but I want to believe that the system is functioning. Of course, you can never rule away bureaucracy. You can't rule away bureaucracy, it is there. But then we'll try to make the best out of it by ensuring that materials, equipments get to the troops in the front line as soon as possible.
And certainly we want all of that to be as fast as it could be. But for someone at that very top to say that, he talked about the administrative challenges, the bottlenecks, we expect that over time we'll have been able to resolve some of these issues. But I want you to quickly respond to something retired Brigadier General Usman said. And I think for him, this is one of the major challenges in combating insecurity as well. And he says, well, for those who have committed crimes, and then you say, well, come back, you are forgiven. Because I recall that I think it was last year, he said a total of 125,000 terrorists and their families have so far surrendered to troops. But for him, he says, maybe this is not the best way to go, because if someone has done the crime, naturally they should do the time, or the weight of punishment or the law should come upon them. So is this something you're also considering as well, so it will serve as a deterrent?
Well, to get the numbers right now, how about 129,000 surrendered DHQ members and their families? 129,000. Now, going to the issue of lawfare, I want to start that the regulations and rules are not stringent enough to serve as a deterrent. That is absolutely correct. If, for instance, you go to the South Niger Delta, people involved in oil bunkering, what is the jail term? What is the penalty? Is it deterrent enough? No, it is not. And something has to be done about that. If you go up north again, let's say those involved in illegal mining and banditry, if caught, what is the jail term? What is the penalty? That is not adequate. And for you to fight terrorism, the legal issues are a key part to success. The legal issues that those found culpable must be brought to book, and the punishment must be strong enough to ensure deterrence. Now, going to those that have surrendered, you see, we are also a professional army, and when you are in combat, if an opponent surrenders, then that is it. You take him in. Surrenders, you take him in, and then let the other processes take its natural course.
General, help us understand, are these opponents, these are enemies of states? It's not like we're fighting another country. and then they surrender. We can understand that context. These are criminals. These are people that are killing our people, destroying our property, looting our resources. If they have their way, they will override the sovereignty of our nation. How do we use the word surrender and then the rules of engagement say you allow them be? Maybe you explain that part. You can see I'm almost confused as to what.
Now, what I'm saying is that when somebody surrenders, you take him in. You allow the legal process to take its course. Right now, those people, some of them are in detention facilities, some of them are in Kanji, and there's a special course that go through all of them. Those that were found culpable faces the books, and then those that are going to be radicalized go to the DDR process, which takes about a year. After that DDR process, they are reinserted back because they have been sufficiently de-radicalized to their local communities to bring closures.
General,
but I think what we need to talk about more is justice for the victims. Okay, justice for victims are also important. That is all part of the entire procedure.
Just before, in addition to the issue of justice for victims, I'm happy you raised that issue. Is it really possible to de-radicalize ideological-driven terrorists in 1 year and reintegrate them into society? How has that worked?
It's possible because the de-radicalization is also done by professionals. De-radicalization is also done by professionals. And within that 1 year period, it is sufficient enough, depending on the people handling the de-radicalization. And the numbers taken in is not huge. Like I said, we'll have 129,000 BHM families. It doesn't mean the 129,000 are going through the program. The people going through the program might be right now are about 800 in badges. And those 800 are people that have been sifted through the entire legal process before they are now brought to the center. So it is possible to conduct DDR programs, which we are doing through Operation Safe Corridor.
We hope that at least we don't have bigger problems on our hands, because we've heard reports of some of these people being reintegrated and they then serve as those providing intelligence in that sense to the terrorists that are still out there.
You see, the kinetic and non-kinetic, the kinetic and non-kinetic must go hand in hand.
Certainly.
And de-radicalization, the DDR program, Operation Safe Corridor, is part of that non-kinetic.
And I think, as you said, the military is professional, and of course we want to take those words. But I want you to speak, if you can, to the case of the ex-NYC DG, because it was also a talking point. And for a lot of people, when they hear the work you're doing, they look through the news, and you can just Google terrorism, and they see ISWAP, Boko Haram, for example, in the Northeast, the attacks we had last month, or they see, kidnapping, in this case, the ex-NYC DG. And as much as they want to appreciate the work you're doing, some of these reports are out there for them. So it's sort of like a stain on the fabric of the military, the great work that is being done. So perhaps you can speak to that. How is it that someone who has served meritoriously is now a soft target for the kidnappers, demanding now, I hear, 400 million naira, according to Brigadier General Usman, retired?
Yes, the kidnapper of the retired general is a sad commentary, quite all right. But then it does not in any way, quote me, it does not in any way undermine the huge successes that have been recorded across the countries. In the Northeast, BHP has been severely decimated. And what it does is that degradation of the BHP makes it possible for them to be completely neutralized because their combat power have been reduced. Attacks on communities have been reduced. New roads have been opened, markets have been opened, life has picked up in Borno. I don't know when last you visited Maiduguri. You find out that Maiduguri as it is like almost any other city in the country, with activities functioning, children in school and all that. If you go to the Northwest, the same thing. Northwest, we've recorded tremendous success since Operation Fasanyama was established just about 3 months back. Before now, you used to have a lot of attacks on the Zaria-Gusau Road, but that has gone.
Right.
Key bandit leadership, Sububu and the rest have been decimated.
All right.
So life is gradually returning and stabilized
all right,
in the northwest. You go to the southeast, the same thing. So the extent of the progress is nationwide. It's nationwide and can never be undermined by a single incident. By the way, when you have asymmetric conflicts, the kind we have, you find out that there is always one single incident, even in well-developed and, developed and secure society like the U.S. You hear of attacks, mass shooting once in a while. It does happen,
right,
but
General,
it doesn't undermine the level of security that have been achieved.
All right, General, we're totally out of time. Just before we go, just a quick one we need to mention, but in 30 seconds, the issue of justice for victims.
Yes, justice for victims is important for full closure. I want to believe that is very important, and I'm sure those concerned the legal system will keep on working on that. I brought it up because we were talking about the Deradicalisation program, and I wanted to emphasize that the Deradicalisation program is part of the non-kinetics, and you can never win asymmetric warfare solely on the kinetic aspects. It's a question of using a whole of society approach, making sure that you bring full closure to it. And countries that have been able to make progress adopted the whole of society approach. The armed forces as it is can only do about 30% of that, doing that kinetic. But once that kinetics have been achieved, every other government agency will need to key in to ensure that...
we're here to support you, and I imagine Nigerians are too, because your work is also our work at the end of the day. But on a final note, what assurance can you give us and give Nigerians at large, particularly about the ex-NYCDG and others who may be in the den of terrorist bandits, or what have you?
First, I want to thank Nigerians for their support. Their support is highly appreciated, and we need more of such support. And secondly, I want to guarantee them that the armed forces is fully committed and ready to defend this country in pursuance of its constitutional mandate. For those that have been kidnapped, we keep on working hard. Several people have been released. We keep on working hard to ensure that they are freed in the quickest possible time to their families. Thank you.
Major General Emeka Onmajuru, Chief of Defense Operations, joining us from Abuja Studios. General, thank you so much for coming on the program, and thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.
We'll take a quick break and switch gears from the issue of security to health, especially a part of your health that you should take very seriously that has to do with your blood pressure. Join us in a moment for a breakdown with the expert.